want to have a running success story with the minutes. I'm the minutes taker. Just for the public that is here, just so you know, our meetings are recorded, so we have that live meeting piece. If you ever wanted to live through one of our meetings, if stay-at-home orders are getting that boring, but we do have to have something to approve at each meeting. So the minutes that you see on the attached agenda are my minutes, and I have a one meeting record set where there have been no corrections to my minutes, and that was our last meeting. So with that, what a setup.
Boy, a pressure.
Whoa, boy, I know, and it's my job.
Let's say, Sue, I will make that motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nicely done.
She's on a roll.
But you only had to send them out how many times?
Oh, man. Oh. Any public comment on our incredible minutes? Hearing none, we will move forward. All right, directors' reports. Because it has been just crazy here, a lot of us have not had a chance to read the directors.
Did go out rather early this morning.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a moment, guys, to read the director's report, and then for our public, what we do is typically have a conversation about this. This has become a lot of our meeting content, and it's an opportunity to ask questions and or comments, seek more information. So we're gonna take a couple minutes, read those, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
So Candy, just be sure when you speak, if you could speak with your head up so it projects toward the microphone, because we lose a little bit of your verbiage.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
You. Filled with lots of good news.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Like, it's a newsy sort of director's report. Reading it myself for the first time, fully through.
But that last page is a little downer.
What's that?
Last page is a little downer.
Well, the last sentence is a little hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little.
Mhm.
Okay. I had to run and get a cat.
Oh,
Got my steps in.
I just figured since my name was taken off the college instruction, that means I'm completely immune from any kind of responsibility for the 40% decline in FTE.
yeah. Jennifer, that's funny you say that. That is actually why I didn't want you to, I mean, often that topic is really kind of faculty issues or kind of other issues, but then, yeah, that is why I pulled it off.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I thought that I was just joking.
I was like, oh, okay.
I thought that'd be funny.
So just for clarity, Jennifer Johnson is our faculty liaison, and so she serves as the person that relates information from the administration and kind of our central office back to faculty. And so she's usually the person that I put her name next to that section. But I actually didn't ask her for any input for that section, and then it was kind of a sort of, we were focused on enrollment and that sort of issue for that section, not so much faculty issues. So yes, I did, Jen. Also, don't think we're paying for anything this summer or any liaison work. So, but also,
yeah, I usually don't have summer liaison work because I don't know who our faculty are because it's so fluid, from spring to fall. So. But no, I was just joking. I just thought that would be funny.
No, I did think about that. I was like, that's not cool.
Okay, everybody has had a chance to read. Are there comments, questions, and et cetera on the director's report?
So is FTEs still 40% down? I assume you would have brought us up to speed if there was any change.
Yep, no, that number's from yesterday, that FTE number, and if this were a regular year and this were last year at this time, I would be like, oh, that's low. But we get so much of our enrollment late that I really wouldn't have been kind of panicked about it. And I would also say, in a regular year, the 15 or so students from last semester that haven't enrolled yet or haven't registered for classes yet, those 15 students really would be enrolled by now. And so again, COVID has delayed the registration of existing students and then is complicating kind of new students. But if we had those 15 students in place, we'd be about where we would be normally. And so we'd be at the same spot of kind of like, oh, we're a little more than halfway there, and we expect the other half of our students to arrive in the next couple of weeks. Well, in the next couple months. But so COVID has slowed down the registration of existing students, and we just don't know how it's going to impact new students in terms of whether they even want to go to school. And then the third issue is we're starting school 2 weeks early. And so that's also kind of, what's happening. I don't know, and there's not a UM person here to tell us what the UM is down for, if this is like on par with what they're experiencing right now. I hope not. I hope they're not 40% down. I would think they would be in real panic. I mean, one thing is our numbers are so low to begin with that one FTE is half a percentage or something. So, I mean, we're about, I don't know what we hit last time, 60 FTE. So our FTE is just quite low. I mean, we used to be at 100 plus FTE. Still, for this community is low, but we have significantly dropped in our college programming in the last few years because we dropped courses and kind of other issues. But yeah, I'm not panicked, but we are really watching those numbers. I mean, just when the office, Mary leaned in and said, she had 4 new students yesterday. So, I mean, that's the thing. You just don't know who's coming. So.
This is Jennifer. Can I add something to that, Tori? Also, it doesn't account for the students that are currently in summer school programs through the UM that will find themselves needing to take courses or wanting to take courses at BC who didn't make it through the summer program. Right now, the summer program at UM is being remotely taught. So depending on how those students respond to those, they might elect to take classes, from us in the fall. Depending on, their experience over the summer. So it also doesn't account for that. And those summer courses, I mean, the first session is going to be done pretty soon, but the second summer session ends like literally 4 days before the fall semester starts. So we might have a kind of a bump at the end there as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, this reality, I hope this is not a new reality.
I know, I mean.
Yeah, the COVID's really screwed it up and made it really hard to kind of get a feel for, what to expect.
Yes, and as news of COVID incidents, variability, and unpredictability, I feel like we knew it was coming for kind of this late summer, early fall disruption again because of COVID cases. And I feel like that psychological tension is really at play here. So,
Yeah. I can, just so I talked a little bit about our campaign, and so we are putting out some signs in yards that are like this. We didn't really have much money to order too many, so I should actually say we're putting out them in both yards, but more in kind of places where people are driving a little slowly, but they're more business sort of establishments, or kind of our partners like the Human Resource Council building or the Sapphire Clinic, those kind of places. We're trying to get these signs up. And then we've been putting up posters. So I put up about 25 posters in the North Valley and Mid Valley the other day of these. So we're trying to do these. And then that same sort of image is being blasted on Facebook and Instagram. So, and I think we've had 5,000 I don't know what they're called, hits on Facebook, on the ad post. So, you know, it seems like we're getting some play, but, you know, we'll see how it works out.
How much do you pay for each one of those?
Each one of those, I want to say, was $12 maybe?
The hard signs
Yeah.
and then the posters.
The posters are about $1 each.
Because if you run low, I know, I'm sure what you were thinking, but they have the large frame, you know, format printing where you go over the mailbox or, you know, these places you could bump up some posters. They may not be exactly like what you've got from wherever you got them, but
Yep.
you could bump up, you know, if you wanted people to try to think of some places to put them up.
I mean, that would be, I mean, anyone that wants to put up posters, I can even just print that as an 8.5 by 11, you know, a small one, so I can do that.
Or, and that size is,
That size is 11 by 17, I think. Those are
I
11
think
by
they'll
17.
do these large format at the printing places. They do pretty nice color. I know they're not cheap, probably $1, but still you could bump them up pretty quick. And if somebody can take one today, maybe I can think of, because I don't know, laundromats are kind of big, but if you put them up.
No, I think it matters. I have a list of where I've been, and
Okay, that would be
afterwards, I
helpful.
definitely will. I can connect to
I
the
have
post.
3 of the frames.
Oh, for the
I have one in my car as we speak.
for the signs.
For the signs.
Oh, I do have. I thought you meant. We do have plenty of frames. I thought you meant the sign. I wasn't
Yeah,
thinking what
well,
you said.
I was reading the sign.
The
but-
sign itself was like $12. I wanted, yeah. I mean, you know, of course you order more, they go down, but I think we got 10 because that's what we had budget for. So, you know, whatever.
I mean, if we still have a cultural impact, which it's hard not to assume that some people will still probably have sketchy issues with jobs and the uncertainty. And one thing about the cycle, U of M, all these education programs are going through is when jobs are abundant, like they were 3-4 months ago, maybe programs don't get as many enrollees. And it might be vice versa this fall. It's highly unusual, but we may find people have some time, and with the cost effectiveness of your courses as well as online, people say, gee, I could take a course in this, I could fit it into my part-time work because now I'm not full-time. It could be that not that it's a great scenario anyway, but we might want to see it as an opportunity, even if it's still a kind of a gloomy, you know, picture. On one hand, it's still got perhaps some opportunities.
Yeah. I would think getting those things in place as much as possible for fall, what we might see then is the next semester.
Sorry, Candy, can you say that again?
I was saying that, you know, kind of going over this road in fall now and having new learnings from that, we might be well poised for our next semester, and people will be really, really hungry by that time for meaningful educational options. So we would be, I'm just hoping.
No, I think you have a great point, both of you, and the kind of the data that we're looking at, and the stories that we're reading about and hearing from our state partners, is actually very much about the industry recognized credential portion of our of our services. And so while we might not see much with college, we are anticipating that our short-term credentials will enroll well for the fall. We're not going to start enrollment on those till October because our funding partners aren't fully funded till the second quarter of their fiscal year. But with the workforce, not the short-term, but the workforce programs that are non-college, running just one this May. We started just one online this May, this certified clinical medical assisting. And we had, 12 students, which is pretty solid. And so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, your numbers for continuing education could well be.
Yep.
I mean, we found that in the past,
Yep.
with this up and down,
Yep.
that we could see a bump there because it fits again into a schedule of, gee, I'm not sure what to do, but I can take this credential.
That's
or work
exactly it.
toward Because jobs are more dear than ever nowadays. We have a whole new
The new reality.
point on that
Yep.
pencil that we have to think about our careers. How do we improve them?
Yep. So hopefully we'll see some action in that area if the college, instruction doesn't, hold or get where we want it to get. I mean, the good thing for us with the continuing education workforce programs is that, we actually can make money on those programs. And, right now it's really sound budgeting by, Hannah Gipple that is, keeping us, on the continuing education front. Our budget is decent, and of course that doesn't get cut by the because it's just a totally different pool of money. But I mean, it will crash if we don't get enrollment, but at least it's not in the negative right now, which is good.
You know, I was so pleased to see the paraeducator training.
Oh, good.
As a former K-12 retired individual, the program that's cited in here, Ed2Go, is a required training piece for paraprofessionals, especially working in special education.
Well, that's interesting.
So to see this is really great. The only concern I have is as we go forward into unknown school openings, sometimes the last people to come back, and sometimes such essential instructors are those paraeducators. And with the required nature of that training, I'm so glad we're doing it. It makes so much sense for a community like ours. So I don't want us to lose that just because we don't know whether or not we're going to be back into face-to-face. So I need to hang in
Let's
there.
talk paraprofessional after this. I think
Yeah.
I need
Because-
more information from you
Right.
because I've been examining curriculums.
Yeah.
You
Well,
were
I'm wondering
ignorant
about
of
your
this.
curriculum, yeah.
Yeah.
When I help people get work with both rehab and so forth, I mean, paras often are hired really on a shorter notice during the school year because somebody shows up and was going to get it, then they didn't show up. So to me, even if the school year started, I would still be checking on openings for paras sometimes every week, maybe day to day, if you want really to get into the Corvallis or Hamilton or Darby school, you keep checking with that administration because it opens up a lot quicker than a regular teacher's position, is my experience.
Yes. And it's another pathway because we have a lot of paraeducators who never considered working in K-12 schools. They get into the school, they discover they love it. And so they're a paraeducator, and then many of them decide, I'm going to go back and get my teaching endorsement. Go back to the Bitterroot College, get those first 2 years under your belt, and you're on your way. So
I like it.
I'm so glad.
Oh, good.
In healthcare and education, there's a constant continuing education requirement.
Yes.
So obviously, as we target what we offer, we know those are going to still be realities in the future, even if we have to customize and tailor how we offer it, how we do remote learning, whatever we do, we can change our style, our offerings, and hopefully stay up with, we capture more money with continuing ed, correct?
Yep.
So what I read a lot on these 2 pages is we're getting hit financially, and that might be a way that you have in the past, keep your head above water.
Yep.
Our head above water.
Simultaneously establishing
Connections with the schools.
pathways.
Oh, and yes, pathways for students, absolutely, yep.
And
So
the word's out. People know, hey, check with Bitterroot College there. You let them know you need that next semester. We only need maybe 8 students. I mean, the word gets out and they'll turn to us.
Yeah, wonderful.
Good, good.
All right. Any comments from our public on the director's report?
I just have one, Tori. How do your non-credits, how is that calculated into your FTE?
It's not.
Okay. Yeah, we had that in Oregon
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
They used to, and then all of a sudden they decided they'd save money and not reimburse.
Yeah. So non-credit programming is not funded by the state. And so,
That's why you can make money on it.
what's that?
That's why you can make
That's
money.
big, exactly. And the reason actually we've been able to, kind of make our non-credit programming more robust in the last couple of years is that Hamilton School District was willing to contract with us
Over there.
because they get the money. So school districts get the money for non-credit education and community college districts do too. That's was one of the arguments for the community college district. We can't ask the other districts to provide us with like couldn't ask Corvallis to give us some of their adult education money unless we actually did the programming within their district boundary. And so we can only partner with Hamilton. And so Hamilton taxpayers are subsidizing the rest of the county in terms of that we even offer this stuff because we wouldn't have the staffing to pull off the continuing education, either personal enrichment or workforce, without the subsidy from Hamilton. But then we can take that subsidy and we can leverage it to make the money off those continuing ed programs. Does that make sense? Am I talking in circles?
It's a little involved, yeah. But-
Yeah,
But it's imperative.
yeah, I mean, we were just really lucky. The Hamilton School District has been very friendly towards the college.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from members? Moving on to council and director topics. The nomination committee has been working successfully with student considerations for recommendations for our membership. And I contacted 6 potential students that were recommended. I have 2 of the written applications from them. I have heard from a 3rd one, but I don't have the application yet. So I would like to do this because we only have 2. I would like to pass around copies of their applications. And let's do it this way.
Sure.
One of those and one of those. What I would like to do is perhaps have an email-based conversation about the student applicants. For those of the public, we have 2 student positions on our council, and one of our student members have just been great. They give us really good feedback, but one of them is just really tied down with work and school, and so he resigned. So, having said that, I would expect we're gonna get at least, I anticipate we're gonna get at least 2 more applications. This just was bad timing on my part. So with your permission, what I will do is I will forward the student applications to you once I have checked with all those people to say, are you gonna apply? And then I will notify you to please look at the applications via email and just make your John Grant and I are the committee this year. And so John and I will walk through those student applications if it's okay with you.
Can you get those sent to us electronically, Candy? To Elida and I?
Yes, I can. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Then the non-student, that's a descriptor, non-student members of our committee. We have Bob leaving after 6 years of wonderful service to us. We so appreciate it. Yay. And you know, you can take a year rest and come back. That's our bylaws.
All right. I'll keep that in mind.
You know, and the thing I think I appreciate is I know that even when you're not on the council, you'll stay connected with the college.
I plan to.
So, yeah, we just really, really appreciate your contribution. And the coffee cup you have was engraved by,
Kurt Foster over at the Grad Lab.
Oh, it's a fun one. Yeah, you had a great article today about the mask.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
today?
I would have
Okay.
brought it up. If you didn't have it, I would have
I
brought
meant
the
to.
article.
Good.
Yeah, no, it's great publicity. So yeah, that's great. That's a neat connection with Fab Lab.
yeah, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's
For your-
good. It's
for your commitment.
been a real honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe you should make a bunch of those up and sell them to work for a fundraiser.
I like it. I like it.
And so with that, we had 2 openings for community at large members. And in talking with various committee members, ROCWA members, and then checking in with the trustees elect for the community college, we felt it would be really important to enhance our connection to the trustees elect. Sue has been on our council, so she has been a great connection, obviously, to the trustees elect. And so we contacted Don Gardner, who's kind of coordinating their work, and Linda Dougherty stepped up to be a member. So with your approval, as the council, we would like to officially welcome Linda to be an advisory council member, and her first meeting will be in July. So with that, the committee is recommending Linda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Do we need to do a second and all that?
Oh, okay.
I make a motion that we accept the. Yeah.
And I second what he said.
Yeah.
We really followed Robert.
All those in
Yeah, Robert
favor
Robert.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with our second open position, we have brainstormed 2 applicants with whom I have not had a chance to talk. So I don't know about their interests. So I will be doing that once my kids leave. So probably next week. I'll see if I can sneak it in this week. I will sneak that in. And then what I would like to do again is use the email process of saying, okay, these are the nominees for the community position, and we are, and I'll send information about them, and then if you get back to me electronically, we can then be ready for our July meeting. That works. And then I want to talk about Terry.
Before you do that, I just thought about, and I just thought of this, should have thought about it earlier, but another community member, if you're wanting another possibility. With Tim leaving,
Yep.
what about,
John.
is it Susan down in Darby? The new career and,
Oh, Lucy. Is it?
Susan something.
I don't know why I was thinking, wasn't there Lucy at some point? Am I being totally crazy? Probably crazy.
Anyway,
Is
just,
it CTE person there?
Huh?
Is it a career tech?
Isn't there college?
yeah, the counselor,
Susan Beasley, it's our
Beasley.
career college coordinator.
Oh, career and college.
um,
You're actually reminding me also that when Tim was leaving, I talked to him about the new superintendent from Corvallis participating, because Tim would be very available to him as a support. And I guess I felt like it is really important. I think Susan is a good recommendation. It's really important, I think, to have some K-12
Yeah.
staff members here.
Susan Beasley.
All right. And then the new superintendent.
Where's it? 20?
uh, The new superintendent in Corvallis is John. I have met him. Great guy, and I can also talk to him.
Okay.
All right, so that would give us 4 potential opportunities. So with that, I will contact you via email, both for the student apps and the other community position. If that works for everybody. Right? Okay. So, update on conversation with Human Provost Harbor regarding his future. And, okay, I'll just start. As we moved forward into our uncharted limbo, is what we've been calling our community college status as a result of the public vote. So the features about that vote are that, number one, people did vote to have a community college here. Number two, they did not vote to support it via a levy at this time. And they did elect 7 trustees. And so that puts us in truly an uncharted limbo for our state. So this is a learning process for the whole state. In that, Dave Beatty, as you know, one of our council members, who is one of our representatives, legislative representatives, has been working very hard and has intentions in our state to really clean up our 2-year language with our Montana codes annotated. And so his work, it may not immediately benefit us, but his work will benefit future communities who want to seek independent community colleges. So with that, right after our vote, the regions had in their 2-year portion of their agenda, the Bitterroot Valley Community College vote results on their agenda. So Tori, me, John Grant, I don't know if anybody else in this room was able to listen to that regions. They held a conversation that essentially tried to answer the question, what next? And I would say that continues to be a bit unclear in that, and thankfully, Dave has been working with the Office of Higher Ed and the regions and with us to clarify that, okay, the community has decided that the community wants an independent community college, and they elected 7 trustees. In that picture, he is maintaining that funding can come later. That if we were right now to move forward with the legislative approval of the establishment of the community college, we can work on that funding piece. So that conversation, there's a bit of that conversation in the Regents meeting. The other attribute of this process is that the community has to establish a need for a community college and has to identify how that need will be met. And we maintain that that has been done. Both the presence of the Bitterroot here for more than 10 years, the community saying we need one, the conversations of the Rockbrook group for 2 years about responding to employers, training, trades training, career training. We think we have that very clearly identified. The need is identified. And so that has become a lot of the future workings of the trustees-elect. Now, the trustees-elect have no official role until the legislature approves the community college. So right now, their work is that work toward making that happen. So sort of separately then, the council, the Bitterroot Advisory Council, us, have identified the need, had identified the need to have a conversation with the provost, and it was quickly because he's leaving. Just ask the provost 3 questions. Number 1, what is the University of Montana's stand on the independent community college in the Bitterroot? Number 2, what are your intentions and actions if that college, if the community college is eventually established? And number 3, what is your commitment and your actions if that doesn't come about, if the community college is not established here? So we met with the provost, the representatives from the council were Dave Meany, John Grant, and me. We met with the provost. In that meeting was Reed Humphrey, the interim provost, Lucy France, their legal counsel, Tom Lacey, who is their 2-year collaboration. Kirk Lacey.
You were thinking of Tom Gallagher.
I combined the names. So Kirk Lacey is the 2-year collaboration person. And then Nathan Lindsay, the assistant provost, who has been on our council for many years and a much appreciated member. So the conversation essentially went for the first question, as far as endorsement of or support of moving for the community college, the provost said, no comment, we will not publicly endorse. We don't have a position officially, but then he answered the second question. If the community does, if the legislature rather, does approve a community college, they will do everything they can to make that a successful transition. And in that part of the conversation, he included a reference to viable coursework that represents the vision direction of the new community college. So it's all about vision.
So they would still stand with the new community college as far as working with the credit courses.
Yes.
That's really a central
Yes.
credibility of the community. We don't have that kind of parent credential for the credits, college credits. That's significant.
Right. So his reference was very much to. Oh, good. Would you mind? Great. As people are on Zoom, two people, Jennifer and Elida, are on Zoom, and so they have to speak up. Okay. So then it came to the third question, and that's where we experienced a little consternation. And so I would characterize Provost Harbor conversation with us as saying, we are always looking for efficiencies, effective efficiencies. And of course, we know that he was hired at the university in regard to distance learning. And so he spent some time talking about if we have a statistics 101 class, we have 7 students. Helena College has 3 students. Missoula has 4 students. That there is merit in connecting a larger class together via technology. And no one can really argue that of course is a reasonable option for people. We tried to respond with, though, for our students, and I believe most junior college students, it's about relationships. It's about a place to come that is away sometimes from the craziness of your home. It's a safe place. It's a place to meet other students that might have the same struggles as you do. And so that place to go in that personal relationship, we reiterate, is very, very important. And sometimes that relationship is what makes the difference between somebody getting it through a 2-year program and not. So that was our opinion. He then kind of had Kirk Lacey talk to us about the work of collaboration and his work with all the UM 2-year programs. And frankly, personal opinion is that was irrelevant to what our questions were, because we already know our college collaborates massively. We already know the 2-year systems in the state talk to each other and try to do that. While that work is laudable, to make it come alive and maybe more robust, that's great, but it wasn't relevant for our conversation. So we moved then back in this conversation about what is the actual structure you're looking at for the Bitterroot. And at that time, Provost Harbor said, we do still see the need for full-time leadership in the Bitterroot. Didn't fully answer the question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Candy? What did he say?
Provost Harbor, when we asked about the structure for the, because we, I think we even called it out at that meeting. Are you looking at us as Missoula College Bitterroot campus? And his answer was, we do see the need for full-time leadership in the Bitterroot. So.
Okay.
Okay, is right. And so we had a bit more conversation about what we want is we want some sort of written document that articulates an understanding between main campus and the Bitterroot. We did have some side conversations about, one of our goals is academic authority, to be responsive to the CTE training needs in our community. And Provost then asked Nathan Lindsay, has there ever been a problem? And Nathan says, no, I think we've approved everything, but I think there's a responsiveness timeline that is not helpful to be able to move forward with the coursework in a timely fashion. So we articulated that. We tried to be pointed but respectful. So the bottom line is that we talked about the notion of something like an MOU, memorandum of understanding, which may have no legal footing whatsoever. But we do want to achieve a memorialization of how we work together and support each other. So after that, the three of us wrote some notes, which I can send to you. I gave to the trustees elect yesterday. I'll send those notes to you all from the perspective of the three of us that sat down together and said, what did we hear? And we tried to confirm what each other felt like we heard. So then John Grant wrote the provost a nice thanks for meeting with us, and we decided, the three of us decided that we would initiate, because we don't want them telling us what we need. We want to say to them what we need. So John wrote this nice thank you note to the provost, and the provost responded with, I have forwarded Director Clark a series of questions and seeking some data to inform this conversation. I don't know, Tori, if you want to.
So, yep, so we received a request for a report that would include data last week, and we received that request, and it was difficult from the request to figure out exactly what they wanted. It was, please provide budget, investment, revenue, data about Bitterroot College. In terms of, I mean, how, I guess, isn't that funny? I wasn't really thinking of how to articulate this. There were a couple of bullets saying, provide, this is why I had such problems with it. I should say I had problems. It just wasn't clear what exactly they wanted and the depth of information they wanted. And so did they just want enrollment numbers, college enrollment numbers, and how much we had spent? What was our general fund allocation each year? And then how many college students did we serve? You know, was it that, is that all they wanted? Or did they want us to dig deep and provide some kind of a more robust and nuanced sort of report? Because as we all know, I mean, if I just say they give us $600,000 a year in general funds and we produce, or, you know, and we enroll 120 students, I mean, they can run those numbers. Why would they ask me to run those numbers? You know, is that all they wanted, or what were they wanting from this? And so we went back on several emails. I suggested some avenues for numbers, and then the answer was yes, those numbers and more. And then I emailed back and said, well, if you want that level of detail, I can't produce that by July 1st, which is when they wanted this report. And I said, but, you know, if more time, I can produce this, you know. And then they emailed back and said, oh, well, wait, we then don't want that much. So then actually Candy and I had discussed some avenues for providing them with numbers. I met with continuing ed director and our budget person, so Hannah and Lee, yesterday, trying to figure out, again, you know, what should we present, what's reasonable to present by July 1st. It looks like they want something by July 1st. what is the angle on this report? So we had Candy and I had a great conversation about it, about what to provide them with, and then our internal team had a good conversation, I felt, as well. In kind of thinking about the various conversations about this, I think that what I sense is they haven't thought about Bitterroot College, so they don't really know anything about Bitterroot College. And so as the provost transitions to this interim provost, they have a couple of things happening. They have this interim provost who's now going to be on, and although he knows Bitterroot College, nobody really knows Bitterroot College. They know me, and they know that the college exists. And so there's an information void for this interim person coming on. The outgoing provost feels like he needs to provide the interim provost with some information, but the outgoing provost has never thought about any information or benchmarks or outcomes or whatever we should be doing here. And so we need to provide that information to the new person. And then there's the backstory of that whatever we provide them with, they said they will use it for recommendations for this upcoming fiscal year for us and for speaking with OCHI, UM, and Bitterroot and BC stakeholders. Once they put OCHI in there, I feel like this is the basis of their report to the regents. When the regents ask them, oh, there's going to be we have the organizing the college district, or do we keep what we already have? And so what we provide them with, that's the basis for this recommendation to the regents. That's quite important, what we provide them with. I want to be thoughtful about that. So it seems like producing something by July 1st at the level of nuance that can make or break a case is not really possible. When talking to Candy, I know in discussions with the trustees-elect several weeks ago and kind of thinking about this, and it's kind of more since talking to Candy yesterday, but I think this is kind of where I'm at right now, is that if they want an overall picture of the Bitterroot College in kind of the one pager, maybe a two pager, right? I feel like what they need to know is that what the college has been charged with. And so in 2012, the Bitterroot College was named the Bitterroot College UM by the regents. And so were all the other two-year colleges got new names at the same time, and we were part of that. We got a new name. And when we all got new names, we got a mission. And that mission statement is on the Montana University System website. And it says the 5 things that we should be doing. And then there was a regents meeting where it said the two-year colleges, Bitterroot College being one of them, that this was their task, this mission, these 5 things. And so I'm thinking to the provost, we will submit a document saying, these are the 5 things we've been tasked with. And there, it's transfer education, workforce education, lifelong learning, adult basic education, and community development. So those are the 5 things that Bitterroot College is supposed to be doing according to the region. So we will say, this is what we've been tasked with. This is the size of the community that we're supposed to be serving, that we're tasked with providing these services to. And then just to tell them what our outcomes are. And our outcomes are, and so in terms of each of those things, if you look at transfer education, so what's the outcome of transfer education? Well, how many students do we transfer? So maybe it's 10. It's not going to be a great number, but at any rate, that one would assume that was what the goal is, right? So so what's the output or the outcome? So we're kind of gonna look at each of the outcomes that would be related to each of these 5 things and what we're currently doing. And then maybe next to those, put what we think actually we should be doing, given the size of our community. So if we have 10 students that are transferring every year, we have a community of 40,000 students. Should our benchmark be 100 students? Like, what should we be doing? So you can see that for whatever reason, is it bad management? Is it money? Who knows? But we're not meeting what we think the community benchmark should be. Or maybe we are. Maybe we're doing great. I don't know. And I've been provided that level of scenario. And so then we look at our outcomes. We look at benchmarks where, you know, that one should, we suggest that they provide us with benchmarks so they have a way to even see if we're accountable to our mission. And then in looking at the outcomes, we would provide some basic information on the inputs that result in those outcomes. And so if you're looking at transfer education, well, to get to our 10 transfer students, what inputs are needed there, or what inputs are we putting to get there? Not what's needed, but what we actually have. And so it would be, well, how much money are we actually putting into instruction? How much space do we have? You know, so they get some overall budget information. So that's kind of the basic outline of the report that I think I could pull off in a week. Now, I know if I had more time, what I would be doing is looking at those inputs and providing more information on the inputs, because I think that's where the story is that, well, I mean, I guess I think that, to back up a little bit, I'm hoping what we can provide at the 60,000 foot level is something that then it could be comparable. And so someone could say, well, what are the outputs from Missoula College? They have a community of 80,000 people, and they have 200 transfer students every year. Wow, they do a much better job than Bitterroot, who has a community of 40,000 and only has 10 students that transfer every year. Wow, that's just, that structure's not working. But then let's back up and look at the inputs. Oh, Missoula College gets $5 million a year, and Bitterroot College gets $500,000 a year. So to begin to understand that inputs matter, and you know, you never know. As one looks at it, maybe we'll find out that, I mean, I have done this exercise before. I haven't done it lately when our enrollment has dropped so much. But nonetheless, I'm confident, I guess I could say, that, yeah, inputs matter, and that we're gonna, you know, our outcomes are low because we don't have the same level of inputs as the other units in the state. I don't know, I guess that's, and then, so a couple things that Candy was asking, though I could see in the email I got back from Kurt yesterday, that, so, and this was Candy's genius idea, but this, first of all, creating a sort of report that does provide comparability, so comparison. So you could take our report, you could ask Missoula College, provide all the data that Bitterroot College provided, and let's compare them. So Candy actually she said, well, you should actually ask Missoula College to do the same thing as part of your report. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, because they're not going to jump at that. But at least we'll have this template that then we could say, you know, it's not going to be deep down in, it's not going to be the volunteer framework for accountability or these kind of other sorts of data collecting efforts that do really help you understand community colleges and whether they're being successful. There are existing data sets that can be collected that then could compare Bitterroot College to, you know, Powell Community College in Wyoming. there are these frameworks out there, but we can't go to that level of detail in this sort of situation. But at any rate, to provide this comparability, report that can be compared to other units in the state. Also, there is an angle of, and again, I don't think I'm going to raise it this time, but I think it should be, we should be thinking about this, is that there is an argument that Ravalli County is served already by Missoula College. And it would be interesting perhaps to see the number of Ravalli County students that have outcomes at Missoula College. So we can know how many start and everything, but if there's no outcome, then it doesn't really matter how many you get initially through the door, right? You got to complete them. And so what is Missoula College, if you combine Missoula College serving Ravalli County and Bitterroot College as it exists right now serving Ravalli County, maybe everything's great and we're all set. But again, I did ask for those numbers several years ago, and that wasn't the case. But we could ask for them again and see, because these are the sorts of arguments, one way or the other, that if the new college is not organized, we're going to have to say, well, the Regents charged us with these 5 things, and it's not happening. And so that's kind of leverage for us to secure more resources and authority. But if, if they're saying, well, Missoula's already serving us, blah, blah, blah. So I mean, I can see, I guess I can see kind of a direction for all this. And you guys are just getting this and kind of just dumping this all on you. What are there thoughts on presenting the Bitterroot College story to the provost in a one-pager that you guys think that we need to make sure is a part of that story?
Terry.
2 questions and a possible suggestion.
Yeah.
So right now, and I've seen some of these emails, right now the deadline is still July 1st.
Correct.
Okay. In Candy and your guys meeting provosts and others, or in this report, has there or will there be any mention of the continuing problem of not being able to break apart data?
That question was brought up again, and unfortunately, I was not prepared
I know,
to say
get you into the gotcha on you.
what the challenge with that is. The provost would maintain we can do that. When we asked the question, 6 months ago, the answer was we needed to talk to Ochi about that. So I feel like there's mixed messages about that. And for those of you that don't know, our student data is embedded in the Missoula College student data. So I don't even know if our graduates are credited to them.
Oh, yes, they are.
So our graduates are credited to them. So that huge.
Okay, so just and there are other issues with data, but I'll give you one directly related to what I've been doing here at college, advising students. If a new student physically comes in and works with Mary and applies to become a University of Montana Bitterroot College student, then obviously we know who that student is. And if they apply to the university and then don't register for courses, we can call and say, hey, you haven't registered. But if a new student plans to take courses here and they get online and apply to the university, my understanding is there's nothing on there where they can specify I'm going to take courses at Bitterroot College. They're just, and So they get admitted to the university, but they don't register for classes. We don't know how to call those students because it doesn't say on their application that I plan on going to Bitterroot College. So that's just one issue we've been dealing with and trying to reach out to students and say, hey, you haven't registered yet, please register. And there's other issues with how that data is, just all rolled in.
There's no such thing as a Bitterroot College student in the system. There's just no such thing as a Bitterroot College student. The way the system, if we want to ask for students, they have to look at all of our sections and then get a master list with all the students and then pull out all the duplicates, and then we have a student list. So at any rate, I mean, this is the problem with, I mean, I could go on, but yes, one can pull the data out, but nobody pulls the data out. It's not a data set that anyone ever asked for, and it's not a data set that's clean. Because if you pull out our students, we frequently have a few students that are actually UM students that are taking classes here. Well, whose students are they?
How do we get credit?
How do I track them? Are they a success? Whose success are they? And so for years, I've been asking for us to have a dedicated, to define a dedicated Bitterroot College student, just like they define a dedicated Missoula College student and a dedicated UF student. And no, they're not going to do that, or that is not where they're going to go. And then of course, I mean, once you have a dedicated student, I know why they're not doing it, because we are on an official campus of the university system, which can only be created by the legislature and be illegal for them to define a Bitterroot College student separately.
Okay,
So they're not going to do it.
Suggestion for the report, and I realize there's basically less than 2 weeks to go, or about 2 weeks. I don't know if the Bureau of Business and Economic Research could whip out a couple data points for you. But one thought is, so and I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's say that we graduate 20 students a year.
Right.
And let's say half of those transfer on to UM somewhere at UM. There's 10 students who get their AA, but they've decided, at least for now, that's as far as they're going. I would think that DBER could attach a dollar figure to that, is that 10 students with an AA degree mean X amount to the economy because they have a little bit, they have a degree now, and maybe they're going to make more money, whatever. So possibly they could attach a number to that separate from the transfer. And a similar number, I don't know if you've done this or not, is could they attach a dollar figure to as far as what all of the workforce programs you offer here theoretically mean to the economy?
Right. Those are great points. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the other thing I was kind of thinking was to create this kind of grid that shows outcomes and inputs or whatever, and put in zeros and question marks where this would be good data for you guys to have, but it cannot be, I cannot get it in 5 days. And so, but if you're really trying to think about this is the missing, or it could just have a paragraph saying things that you need to, seek out in order to reflect more on this. Gotta have that. And actually, it also made me think, Terry, was that another part of the report, either in the kind of table that's created or not, is kind of a listing of the barriers. So, obviously, I guess the barrier is if everyone else is getting $1 million and we're getting $100,000, clearly there's a financial barrier. But then there's these barriers of authority and barriers of not having disaggregated numbers that just at least have said them out loud so that they have to be addressed. And even if they're addressed, we're like, oh, of course we can separate out the numbers. Yes, you can, but let's understand what that really means. Because that is, I frequently find that in discussions that people can kind of throw out gotcha answers. And it's not really, that is disappointing to me.
So I was just going to give a quick example of related to the two suggestions I gave. A number of years ago, when I was still at the U, a lot of the students who did out of classroom activities, internships, etc., were volunteering. They weren't getting paid for their hours. And the president at the time and provost asked me, so what does that mean economically to the community or the state? And at first I'm like, I don't know. I called the Bureau of Business and Economic Research, posed the question to them. They're like, well, that's easy. Give us either how many students and how many hours each student volunteers per year, or give us, you figure out, you have 100 students and they're, volunteer, each averaging 100 hours. Give us a figure and we can easily come up with the dollar value to the community. And they did it all. And I mean, it was like the next day they had a number to me, which was like $4.5 million in
Such a great point.
So,
and it makes me think, okay, if I'm thinking inputs and I'm thinking outputs, those are really outcomes, right? And so then you have your outcomes. It could have benchmarks where we should be. Let's say we have 10 finished students. That are outputs. Their outcomes is that generates $1 million of tax income, right? But if we were really serving our community, we would have had 100 students, should be our benchmark, and that would have given the community $100 million. Which then goes into, I think, where the trustees elect make the case is, well, this is currently what Bitterroot College UM is funded to do. These are their outputs, these are their outcomes. Yeah, it's, whatever it is. But we should really be at these benchmarks, and then this would be what the situation would look like.
Tori?
Yeah.
Who are you have to send that report to Kirk and who else I missed?
So
name.
Tom Gallagher is the dean of Missoula College, and for whatever reason, the provost has told I call him the collaboration czar, Kirk Lacey. So he was hired last year to bring Helena College, Missoula College, Bitterroot College, and Highlands College out of Butte to bring the 4 UM 2-year units together to collaborate. So he's the collaboration czar, that's Kirk. And then Tom Gallagher is the dean at Missoula College. For whatever reason, the provost has Kirk responding to my questions about the report, and then said that I should work with Kirk and Tom on my questions, which is somewhat of an indicator that their long-term goal would be to more formally embed Bitterroot College under Missoula College because Tom is the dean.
But you're not sending any of it to the new provost.
Well, no, I mean, I'm copying him in all these emails.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kim, when you get that done, can the
Yes.
trustee elects get a copy of that?
Yes.
That is, I think the summary of kind of all this reflection on, this is about the 10 millionth report that Tori, through 3 different administrations, has submitted to the university. She has made this really an effort over and over again. But it is really our moment in time with the trustees-elect and the council that now we unite in especially identifying when OG asks, or the regions ask for whatever they're going to ask for in preparation for their recommendation to the legislature about an independent community college. Now we all really.
And please put in there, if you can figure out any way to put in there, that we can't even go into our local high schools and advertise that we exist and to please come here.
It's just one issue after another, but it's really the same issue. It's autonomy, it's that one
Right.
pager that you wrote, autonomy of your money. You don't capture the money you're earning. We don't capture the data that we have on our students that we know we generate. But I'm just asking, and I know you thought of this and you've probably done it, but it occurs to me, what would we like that MOU to look like? What would we like the contract that we should have gotten 12, is it going on 12 years now? You know, that should have been something that was an automatic out of the gate. We shouldn't be having to keep asking with our hat in our hand. You know, gee, could we please have something that clarifies what we're already doing? And we're asking them to do it. So I'm just saying, if there's anybody that can write the perfect job description, if that's, you know, compared to that, what we want it to look like, we might want to also say, well, they haven't asked for it, but this is what we want at the end, so we can achieve the capacity we know we're capable of. But if we don't have autonomy, and I thought we did have examples of courses that weren't permitted, like the dental hygiene.
Yeah.
You know, you had all the money, you had all the capacity, everything in line, except, no, you didn't get approval at the last second, and we still are trying to, you know, respond back to that. I mean, we do have examples where we couldn't offer coursework.
Right. We have been stymied.
And we had U of M students wanting to come here, which all of it, I suspect, gives them some pause, and they think, wow, these guys are gonna get bigger and bigger if we don't keep asking them for more extraneous stuff that isn't really what we want at the end of it. I mean, I don't know. It does get very frustrating. After 6 years, it sounds like, I mean, I'm not saying it's the same issue, but we had support. We had support from Gary Brown.
Oddly enough, we got more from him than anyone else.
And then it seemed to change midstream, and then it sounded to me like we didn't have support. It's been a real, as their politics and their finances change. So when they sneeze and we get the cold.
Yep. Yes.
So I have an offer. Since I'm still here part-time this week, and then the next week or two after this to just sort of training Jamie. I know you're swamped with this. If you would like me to contact the Bureau and run some ideas by them and see what they can do, I would love that. So if you want to talk about that.
Yep. I was sorry to come think of that. He doesn't have any hours left.
Thank you very much.
He volunteered.
I know.
You know, so that was a lot of information.
That was kind of a.
Any questions? Anything you think we should be considering aside from what's already been mentioned?
So, Candy, real quick, this is Jennifer. So you said Ochi was going to be presenting to the legislature. Is that the case? Are the trustees going to be involved in that process at all, or is it all up to the Ochi to make the case for us?
It's technically the regions that make recommendations to the legislature. The legislature can still act independently, but you have this official body that's making a recommendation. Ochi will, of course, be very close working status with the regions for obtaining that information in order to make that recommendation. So when we say we're working with Ochi, we're working with the regions, it is pretty much a unified body. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Jennifer, if the regents vote not to recommend the organization of the new district, or if they voted for it, either way, the local group still goes and makes their case. So
Okay, that's what I was wondering about, because what is the power of the trustees if these, you know, two entities are the ones that get to make the choice?
Right, so it's just like any sort of other legislative hearing, is that anyone can go and talk to the committee members in the hearings, or even advocate, lobby them separately about how they want those members to vote. And so if the regents via OCHI are gonna go to the committee's meetings and say, don't organize Bitterroot College, certainly the trustees elect or anyone from the community or the public can speak separately and go, you know, advocate for the formation.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
Okay, pretty thorough discussion of that grand project. I do want to take a little moment here to introduce India Height. She is one of our student representatives, and she has been phenomenal in that role. And she will be continuing with us. And we have asked Terry Berghaus to continue in his role with us. He is an assigned person from the college to be part of this council. With his work previously with the UN, and now his work with admissions and advising for BC, and that we have a new person coming on in that role, we felt like continuity and input wise, he has just really depth of knowledge and a very rich experience to continue with us. So we are proposing that Terry can't go anywhere, it's official. Okay, any public comment on that whole section? Because we don't have a provost update, and Kirk Lacey has always been invited to our meetings and has never come to a, this is an editorial comment.
That would be a
And
compliment.
has never let him know that he
It's true.
That was snarky on my part. So with that, any public comment? Yes, Tom?
As like community member and more in the rural side of the valley where Darby's at, I mean, you do have some voices in the high schools telling kids about your programs here. There are a lot of students that I see where, like you're saying, where that relationship piece comes in, being able to stay kind of local where they have family obligations and different responsibilities is huge. And I would really kind of invite you to explore as many different ways that you really have social impacts on the community. And while it's really hard to quantify those like dollars, like Terry was suggesting, sometimes you can also have like the volunteer hours, but also just it's like you're kind of raising just the general social well-being in a lot of ways. And I mean, well, you can't always put that in numbers. You can definitely have just numbers of hours or people or community interactions. I mean, like when we have had things like our TED Talks, different things, we didn't have these networks of people. And even I take kids field trips to Fab Lab, things like that, and you charge us basically nothing. Which is really cool to turn them onto that stuff. So there's definitely a lot. I think we reach deep into what some of the roots factors are to bring to the table. I mean, I haven't given you a ton of direction on your report, so it is a good time to really frame it how we want it to look.
Yeah.
And just say,
Excellent.
gosh, we want to keep these things going on.
That's excellent,
So,
Tom.
and it's statistically viable to quantify satisfaction.
Yeah.
And what you're getting out at with social well-being, we can quantify that. And I think the Montana Department of Labor and Statistics endeavored to do that with the second reading of the two-year commission in comparing people who did graduate from high school, people who graduated from high school, two-year programs, four-year programs, and then master's plus. And they quantified some of what you talked about, Tom, in comparing two-year and four-year, and the outcomes were the same, except two-year students didn't have student debt. So that's socially.
Oh, darn. We all want to have student debt, don't we?
Like, I have this thing where people expect me to show up. My friends expect me. I have to turn in something rather than, falling into the press. For people, as far as, like focus, and I'm going for a goal, I also know it's definitely Bitterroot specifically has helped with several of my fellow students.
Yes.
So it's really.
Yes.
Can I just comment on actually what both you guys said, and then just thinking about the trustees elect, that depending on how it goes at the regions and what the level of discussions are, or presentations are, they're gonna ask for all this data, just kind of like the UM is, right? We provide all this data, but it's these kind of stories that make people vote differently, and for the trustees elect to connect with people like Tom in India and see if when the moment comes to get a bus or something so they can go up and go to the microphone and say, hey, Bitterroot College matters because of these things, and to do that at the legislative level, that is the most powerful thing. That was our big mistake last time, is that I was all about numbers, and well, of course we didn't have the college, but nonetheless, I tend to be about numbers, that I flew into that stuff, but that's what really makes people vote, I think. Terry, sorry.
That was exactly one of the things I was going to say, is lots of times, lots of people want lots of statistical data.
Right.
But keep in mind those legislators, when we get to that place, are regular people. They are not stats people necessarily. And a more ethnology sort of report to them will speak to them. They will sort of buzz out when you have pages of data.
Right.
And they don't trust them.
Right.
And probably that's a good idea, because you can pretty much prove any case you want by how you design the statistical report. So I think it's important to keep in mind that legislative part of this process doesn't just involve Ravalli County.
Right.
It is a Montana state issue.
Right.
Dave's work is wonderful on trying to clean up the statutes for community colleges in Montana. Is the weirdest thing I've ever even read. So it's not just a Ravalli County issue when the legislature comes to vote on this.
Right.
This affects all kinds of communities all over the state. And it's not just Bitterroot College UM that is uncomfortable with some of the bureaucratic baloney that's involved with dealing with their parent university. And in fact, the idea perhaps of moving the perception from a parent-child relationship to a partnership relationship would be constructive for everybody statewide. So those are some things to keep in mind that are less it's all about us, and more it's all about students in Montana. So that's one thing. But I was thinking about your marketing thing and the fact that we can't go to a career fair or a college fair at the high school. But you know, everything is kind of special about graduation this year. And I don't know if you have the budget or the money to send some congratulatory messages to each student and their family that graduated in whatever weird way they got to graduate this year, along with a little flyer about the college and perhaps some of the story about saving the money and staying at home and having a more personalized education and all the things that your students can tell you are the wonderful things about going to a community college. But doing some sort of outreach to the graduates of all the high schools that are in our proposed
There was
community college district.
104 from Hamilton and I think 115 from Corvallis. I don't know how many Darby or Victor.
Victor was in the 20s, I think. But anyway, it's just an idea of a personalized approach that maybe skins by this not being able to talk to whomever we'd like to talk to.
If you're talking about, getting a bunch of people going out and town, I'm sure we could rally students to do that. So don't be shy, because they do have mental health stuff. Give them all an answer, 10 minutes, have them do like little, we're back, just say something speak, but I'm sure there are several students, if not more.
Pick at the capital in a positive way. Yeah, you know, formative Valley Community College.
And maybe you can have a socially distanced ice cream social.
So, last suggestion, if Tori, you feel based upon previous discussions about how we can't be at the high school recruiting, if you think that's still an issue, could the newly elected boards send it out sort of under their own, and then you don't get your hand slapped?
Well, that's interesting. You know, the problem, the barrier will be that they're not going to release addresses to us for that. Those will be protected. The high school graduates, like getting all their addresses. I mean, we could probably do it by hand. I mean, you know, we could figure it out.
Could you just send it to each high school and say, could you send this message out to all your graduates?
No, they might say that's true. That's a good
Well,
point.
we might be a little tardy since the
Yeah.
graduations are happening.
They're willing to sit down.
How can a university send out tons of recruiting stuff
I
to
know.
individuals?
Because they are real, they can, when you take the ACTs, you check the box that you will accept stuff, but since we're not a real entity, we will never be able to send anything.
You could probably buy the list.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's really true.
As a store would be
Right,
able to
right,
buy
right,
the list.
Right, that's the point.
Um,
On that point, oddly enough, we did send out for every individual that was a dual credit student at a high school, they received a letter from Tom Gallagher and I saying, go to the UN. But we did get our logo on the letter, and I got to sign it, but it did say UM's place.
There you go. This is another suggestion back 2 or 3 conversations ago about the data that you might want to present.
Yeah.
As far as the input piece.
Yep.
Is my understanding is that the budget that Provost has submitted has been static for a number of years.
Right, okay.
However, the cost of delivering programs has increasingly gone up. So some sort of a visual that shows the input of the dollars with the ability for output from that input in a sort of a graphic representation, I think would be useful. Because I think, just a surface look at that looks like, and so why would output be going down even though the same inputs are going in. You need to understand that
Expenses
cost,
have gone up.
yeah, the cost has gone up and it's been borne by that budget, not by that budget getting a cost of living increase each
Right.
time.
Right.
Sort of,
It's professor's part, but
right,
getting.
Which is like exactly what's gonna happen this year.
yeah, but it
Like the
needs to
bargaining
look
went
at the
up and.
picture, because those numbers are not gonna talk to you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a really good point. So to have another line just showing cost,
Yeah.
cost, our amounts are the same.
Right, right,
Obviously, our outputs are
exactly,
gonna go down.
yeah, exactly.
That's a good one. Yep, okay. That's the old chicken foot.
That's right.
Other public input, conversation or any council input? Hearing none, we are going to move on to announcements and documents received. Any?
Yes, no. I think. Think about it. Some letters,
Okay, and then any new business on the part of the council and the administration about things we should be doing differently?
Did you ever have some more plans with the new classroom space? Because I kept thinking about Jennifer's concerns with the labs, and I thought, gee, I know you're not maybe getting new students, but if you help those lab students with more space, I know that probably poses more challenges, but just a quick
So
question.
with Head Start, you mean?
Yeah, with your 2 new classes.
So I didn't go into that in the report, just because, we haven't, I just noted that we hadn't finalized our lease yet.
Oh.
Assuming that the UM can come up with the $30,000 for the, I mean, of course, it's all gonna have to work out, right?
Yeah.
But assuming that it does work out, then we would get this space. So Early Head Start is leaving the building, and they had 2 classrooms spaces and the outside modular. And the plan at the moment is that the Alternative Learning Center, which is the high school credit recovery program that lives in one of our classrooms during the day, and we get it in the evening, they're gonna just move to the modular outside. So then we'll capture 100% use of one of the classrooms, and then the 2 classrooms in the building that Head Start will be vacating, we'll have 100% use of those. And we're looking to move this art space into one of the Head Start classrooms. The other Head Start classroom actually has a dividing wall, so it's kind of 2 small spaces. And we're gonna take one of those spaces and hopefully be able to make it, Elida, if you're still there, you'll hopefully like this, make one of the small spaces a dedicated healthcare instruction space. And so then we can put in our hospital bed and that kind of stuff into that space. The other of the split classroom that Early Head Start will get from Head Start, we're gonna make into just a conference space, kind of a flex space. So it could be small class, could just be conference space for internal or external college meetings. And then the space that will become 100% ours by ALC moving to the modular, we will absorb into continuing education and space we needed. So that makes sense. And it looks like Early Head Start, they're in the process of moving out right now. So hopefully we can make some arrangements to get into those rooms before college starts in the middle of August. One thing we realized is that, we don't have any furniture for new space, but as you can see, we have cobbled together some furniture here, so anyway, we'll figure it out. Yes, I know, exactly.
Now, again, I work for a state sale company, so I know how to get furniture for cheap. Might not be the classiest, and
Hey,
mostly if you guys want to poke your head in, Blue Jays, state sales, a lot of them. But also, after the sales happen, sometimes there's stuff left that nobody wants to deal with.
Oh.
And I sometimes get my little competitive on that. So that could be an option too. There's usually a lot of stuff. Nobody has the room, they just go, it's great, but I just can't take it.
You know what we were envisioning, if this space is freed up a little bit and not have to have the art classes meeting here,
Yeah.
just to have like a ping pong table and a billiards, and make this a little bit more of a student space. I mean, it's kind of a crazy space, but just you know, that release that we're, you know, making. So if you ever see any of that stuff,
Yeah. No, I
but in general, yeah, I'm gonna connect you with Hannah.
Just in case I'm like working a sale or something, I just need to know, like, right now, does it sound like something you want? I'd rather.
Cool. Take a picture, text it to Hannah, she'll be like, that's it.
Yeah, just either way, just might as well grab it.
I love it, thank you.
Well, thanks, Bob, for reminding
I
us
know.
of the Head Start, yeah. And we've been anticipating it forever.
I know. Oh, get that space.
All right. Anything for the greater good? Contribute to the conversation?
I just really like the idea of us being a partner instead of a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, no, it's just a good word, Terry, that's what we want to be.
I think it should invade all the conversations. It should invade the tone through which we speak. Whether we're meeting with them or legislators or the chancellor's office or whomever.
Yeah.
It's a different feel.
Yeah.
Like, one example might be to, like, next year when you have graduating students in there, saying, okay, go to the UM. I mean, Bitterroot College can also be your first step into the UM.
Right.
Right.
There could be some,
That will start here, but then, yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, that's my job.
That is your job.
I will make that motion that we retire for the day.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Bam, bam. Meeting is adjourned.
So good to have a job.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, you guys. Bye, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you.